Hi, my name is Seraphim. In today's video, I'm going to share with you something that you probably have not heard anywhere else in the spiritual community. And it has to do with one of the most commonly experienced signs or symptoms of awakening. So if you've been waking up between about the hours of 3 to 5 a.m. almost every night, not really sure why this is happening, and you're looking for some insight around this, today I am going to give you the very specific reason why this is happening. I'm also going to provide you some insight into how to use this time to the best effect and what activities to avoid during these hours of wakefulness. So if you're looking for a bit more information throughout your awakening on why this is happening and how to make the most of it, today's video is all about you. Welcome to the Empowered Empath. All right, so you're waking up between 3 and 5 a.m. or somewhere in that ballpark almost every night, and you're not really sure why this is happening, but you do know that it is linked to your awakening. You have some innate sense that for some reason you're waking up between 3 and 5 a.m. And maybe you've done an online search to try to find some information about why is this happening, because it can be very disruptive. Now, your online search probably yielded all sorts of conflicting information, from its spirit trying to communicate with you to its demons trying to communicate with you. And 3 a.m. is the witching hour, which can be used for positive manifestation, or it can be used to more nefarious ends. All sorts of conflicting information. And while I'm not going to argue any of that information that you may have found, I will say definitively it is not the reason why you are waking up at 3 to 5 a.m. So today I'm going to provide some insight into why this is actually happening. And I suspect that by the end of this video, you will have a much better understanding for yourself in terms of how to use this for your spiritual progression on your spiritual path and why this is happening in the first place. So first of all, yes, this is a sign of awakening. When you're waking up inexplicably between 3 and 5 a.m., it's absolutely a common sign of awakening and something many people experience as they go through that process. So on that note, I'm going to agree with every other spiritualist out there. But where I diverge is that this has far more to do with biology, and biology that's influenced by your spiritual progression than it does spirit trying to communicate with you or demons attacking you for that matter. So this is more of a return to your natural sleep cycle or circadian rhythm. I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that in a minute, but first I want to talk a bit about what is awakening and what's going on with us internally during that process, so you can understand how these two phenomena are related. Awakening is called awakening for a reason. It is very literally exactly what we're doing. Our consciousness is waking up. We are becoming self-aware and conscious in an otherwise largely unconscious world. So many people who go through the process of awakening find throughout that process that very suddenly things that never really bothered them before, they can't tolerate anymore. This is because awakening really shows us where we are out of alignment with our highest and best good. And in that sense, it kind of forces us back into alignment with the earth, with nature, and with ourselves. At its very core, awakening is the process of realignment to your natural state of being. I'm going to say that again. Awakening is the process of realignment back to your natural state of being, or your natural resonance. How many of you, through the course of your awakening, have found that suddenly things that never really used to bother you become intolerable? This can be things like fabrics, foods, violence on TV and movies. The process of awakening is a process of realigning with the resonance of life, being present and alive, and resonating with that frequency. Really resonating with that frequency, really being in alignment with the universal energies and with our own virility, because our energetic field is incredibly powerful. However, we are living in a society, in a culture, and in a world where our natural state of being, our natural personal energetic power is immeasurably suppressed. The process of awakening is where we tap back into that. So autopilot, it's no longer something that we can tolerate. We cannot be on autopilot. We're just not. We're seeing the world with new eyes. It's like relearning the world around us and recognizing all of the broken down structures that we have and hierarchy that we have and where everything needs to be fixed. It can be a little bit discouraging, but we also tap back into this source energy within ourselves, and this is where this energetic realignment begins to happen. That has consequences on a biological, physical basis as well. This is why sometimes people become very sensitive to fabrics or soaps to the point where they will break out in hives and need to switch to all natural products. It's a biological response to what's happening through our spiritual progression. And waking up at 3 a.m. is exactly the same. Okay, this is where things get super interesting. So there is a heap of evidence to suggest that pre-industrial revolution, our sleep cycle used to be very, very different. We used to enjoy a biphasic circadian rhythm. And what that means is we slept in 2 segments a night. People would go to sleep for a few hours, they would wake for a couple of hours, and then go back to sleep for a few hours. And this was just the natural cycle. A few things changed this for us. Number one, the Industrial Revolution. During the Industrial Revolution, the 8-hour sleep cycle was very much encouraged because it was said that it would allow people to be more productive. More productive just means more work hours in the day. Also, the invention of artificial light very much affected our sleep cycle. We have a tiny, tiny gland that's like the size of a grain of rice at the base of our skull, and that gland's job is to regulate our circadian rhythm. This gland is incredibly sensitive to artificial light, and artificial light can actually reset this sleep cycle in our brains and biologically in our bodies. So growing up, surrounded by artificial light and having an 8-hour sleep cycle enforced upon us, this feels very natural. It feels like the way that the world works, the way everybody is supposed to sleep. But it is absolutely not our natural sleep cycle. And if awakening is the process of realigning with our natural state of being, it only makes sense that at some point during the awakening process, our natural circadian rhythm is going to surface and is going to try to make itself known so that we can fall back into this natural way of being. Further evidence that helps prove this is our natural sleep cycle comes to us from the U.S. Institute of Mental Health, who have done some really interesting studies and research on our circadian rhythm. What they found is when they removed artificial light, it only took subjects about 3 weeks before they fell back into a biphasic sleep cycle, which is just further evidence that this is actually our natural state of being. And should we go back to natural conditions, people would naturally fall back into this segmented sleep cycle. So now that you know this, now that you understand that the process of awakening brings us back into harmony with our natural biology, our natural state of being, and that this sleep cycle is part of that, how do you make the most of this time? What should you do when you wake up between 3 and 5 a.m.? It's kind of a weird time to be awake. First off, it's important to avoid any kind of artificial light, or as much as you can. If you do need to use an artificial light source, just try to keep it as dim as you possibly can. It'll be easier on your eyes as well. But what to do when you wake during these few hours a night? I definitely recommend anything of a spiritual nature. You can do it spiritual reading, meditation, breathing exercises, maybe some light yoga or stretching. Make love to a partner, and make no mistake, connecting with a partner in this way is absolutely a spiritual practice and a pretty fun one, so I encourage you to have fun with that. Also, there was a pre-industrial revolution doctor, it's kind of an interesting note, who said that the hours between the first and second sleep are a very auspicious time to conceive a child. So if you're trying to conceive a child and you're waking between 3 and 5 a.m., I would say use this to your advantage. Otherwise, things to avoid. The most important thing to avoid during this time is devices. Our devices are incredibly bad for us on so many levels, largely energetic, but also the artificial light that's coming from that device is going to be really disruptive during this time. So don't go on your phone, don't be scrolling Facebook, don't go on Instagram, don't go on your computer, and don't watch TV. Otherwise, do what you're moved to do. If you want to just sit in quiet contemplation and just take some time for you, then do that. When you feel yourself returning to a sleepy state and you feel like you're ready to go back to sleep, then allow yourself to go back to sleep. Allow yourself that natural sleep cycle. And if this is something that you want to develop, then developing these habits and developing a little routine for your time between the first and second sleep can be very beneficial as well. Consider that awakening is a process of alignment with our truest authenticity. It makes denying who we are and why we came here painfully impossible. We need to own our magic. Step into this magic and own it if we want to be able to make changes in the world around us. We need to harmonize with our own realignment and then transmit that frequency instead of being influenced by the frequencies that are incoming. Now, the process of awakening helps us do this by bringing us back to our natural resonance, to our natural state of vibration. And that is a beautiful thing. Spirit communicates with us in many, many ways. It doesn't have to knock on our door at 3 a.m. to deliver a message. Spirit's always with us and is communicating with us all the time. That said, the wakeful hours between the first and second sleep are a very auspicious time to communicate with Spirit, and this is why I so encourage you to do things like meditate or quiet contemplation, because you may find that you are receiving some really lovely universal guidance during this time. So have fun with these wakeful hours. Experiment and see what works best for you, and then come back and let me know. I want to hear about your experiences, so please do share in the comments below. Otherwise, I do want to say thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you learned something new in this week's video. If you found this video helpful, please like and share it with your friends. Also, subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified whenever I post a new video. If you're interested in booking a personalized session, tarot session, or eye-gazing session with me, then you can visit tarotbyseraphim.ca. And if you'd like to join the Empowered Empath Facebook group, you can do that by visiting Tarot by Seraphim on Facebook. I will link to all that in the description below for you. Thank you so much for watching. Blessings, and I will see you next week.